Good morning, everyone. It's Kodasha, and welcome to this session. For this session, I am going to be talking about the new LEGO Mindstorms software. It's different from the previous software because it's based on Scratch. You can see this is what it looks like. And also, I have got a robot set up. You can see the robot right here. So later on, we'll focus on the robot when it comes to the demonstrations. So we've still got a couple of minutes before the stream officially starts, so go ahead and get yourselves ready. If you have not yet downloaded the software, the link is provided on my Facebook page. Just search for Mindstorms software download and you should be good. So I'm checking my stream now. And yes, it seems to be working. So I think we're good. We're going to start at 10 o'clock. If you have any questions, you can post in the comments below. I won't have the time to look at them right now, but rest assured I will answer all and any questions when the stream has ended. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kodasha. This is my little Mindstorms robot that I've set up right here. You can see it's like really simple. There's just one cable connecting the touch sensor, and that would be at port 1. And the other cable is attached to a motor. Let me just change that to go to port A instead. Right. So later I will focus on the robot like this. For the meantime, let's just look at the software. So if you're seeing my screen right now, you can see that the software is different from the previous version of the LEGO Mindstorms software. It's got a much cleaner interface, and here you can start with a tracker. So just like the previous version of the software, there's like 5 activities with tracker. So if I were to tap on start, so the building instructions are given inside the app itself. Let's go through them real quick. Then after you have completed that, you go to the next step and you can see the entire program is already there for you. So you don't really need to figure out how to program it from scratch. You can see the program is already given. Then you can install the program into the robot. And if I go to the next step, you can see there is a video that will show you what it looks like. So that is really super handy. But I'm not going to be using the pre-defined program right now. I'm going to be starting a program from scratch. So let's close this. I can go to Home, and here you can see there is the New Project button. So we'll start a new project. Sometimes the cables are loose. Anyway, you can see here that I have got all the commands in the left pane. They are subdivided into different sections. We have sections on motors, movement, display, sound, events, control, sensors, operators, variables, and my blocks. Next to the pane, we have got the icon representing the robot. If I were to click on this, you can see that my EV3 brick is connected to a motor at port A, and the touch sensor is connected to port 0. Very handy. It also tells me how much battery I have left. Next thing we have is the view for the motors and the sensors. Now it says here 1. That means port 1. If I were to press the touch sensor, you'll notice it'll change from 0 to 1. So the state for the touch sensor is right there. As for the motor, the state for the motor is there. It's at port A. If I were to twist the motor, you can see that the degrees reading is changing. Cool. Let's start with something very simple. We'll make it play a sound. So I click on the sounds palette, and here are all the sounds that I can do. Let's just drag one in. So it says here, play sound, communication, hello until done. I'm going to go ahead and press play here. The program will then be transferred to the robot. And there you go. Now, a difference from the previous version of the Mindstorm software is that the program doesn't automatically stop running at the end. You'll notice that the lights on the EV3 are still blinking. So I have to press the stop button here, and that will make it stop running. Now let's see how to choose a different sound. You can just click on Communications Hello, and you can see I have a lot of sounds that I can play with. Let's try the T-Rex roar. So now it says play sound, T-Rex roar until done. Press the play button. So you got a nice T-Rex roar there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and see how you can program motors. I'm gonna get this out of the way. Now I choose motors. You can see there's a lot of motor commands. Some of them might not be familiar to you. But I'll just choose the simple one. Just use the very first one. It says there, motor A, run clockwise for 1 rotation. Now as I do this, look at the tooth that I have attached to the motor. So you can see it is running for 1 rotation. Note that I did not set the speed of the motors, but it still works. So what you can do if you want to make it faster or slower, you can actually choose set speed. So I'm just going to insert that command. See, the default speed is 75. Run. So that is how fast it would go at the default speed. Now I'm going to change it from 75 to 30. And you can see it is turning slower. Here's a fun thing that you can try. What would happen if I were to change the speed to -30? to -30, it actually turns the other way. So this is something you want to keep in mind when you're programming. I'll set it back to 30. Let's look at this motor block. It says there motor A. And clockwise, I can change it to clockwise or anti-clockwise relative to the speed set. And the next thing we want to look at is this here. So it says 1 rotations. If I want to do 3 rotations, for instance, simple enough, just change the number to 3. So that's 3 rotations. Okay. How about if I just want to do 1.5 rotations? Again, very simple. Just put 1.5 there. Stop and run the program again. And that is 1.5 rotations. If you want finer control, you can choose to change from rotations to degrees. So let's say I want it to turn 90 degrees. So that is 90 degrees. Can also and that makes it point straight up again. Finally, you can actually turn the motor based on the number of seconds you want it to run. So from degrees, I change to seconds. And let's say I want it to run for 3 seconds. So it runs for 3 seconds. Awesome. How about I want to make it run for 3 seconds in one direction and 3 seconds in the other direction? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to figure this out before I give you the solution. Here's a hint. You don't need to use just one block. You can use multiple blocks. All right, so if you have multiple blocks, it's really easy to do that. I am going to move the mouse to the blocks pane, and here I can add a second block. So the first block says run clockwise for 3 seconds. The second block says run anti-clockwise for 3 seconds. So let's see how that works. Right. Okay. And you can also mix and match. For instance, let's just add one block. For the first block, I'm going to set it to run clockwise for 3 rotations. The second block, I'm going to say run anti-clockwise for 720 degrees. And for the third block, I'm going to say run clockwise for 3 seconds. Okay, let's summarize. I'm going to set the speed to 30. Set it to run clockwise for 3 rotations. Set it to run anti-clockwise for 720 degrees. And finally, set it to run clockwise for 3 seconds. Let's see what happens when we run the program. Okay, now you will notice sometimes it might not be stopping exactly where you want it to stop. That's okay, not a big problem, because you have to allow for some movement, all right, before the motor actually stops from the time the stop command is issued. So now that we have explored how to use motors, let's look at how to use a sensor. If I were to go into the Sensors tab, you'll notice that I have got the touch sensor here. And if you notice that we go into the events, and here I can also see touch sensors here. Let's see what happens when I do this. So the program is, when the touch sensor is pressed, set the speed of the motor to 30 and let it run clockwise for 3 rotations. Okay? Let me show you the program again. So the first block is when pressed. The next block is set the speed to 30. The final block is run clockwise for 3 rotations. Run the program. So nothing is happening right now. I'm going to touch the sensor. So you can see the motor will turn. And this will continue each time I press the sensor. How about I want to make it so that the motor is going to run and I want to press the sensor to make it stop. I can't obviously use this block right now. So I'm going to use back my original start block. So it says there when program starts, set speed to 30. Now instead of using the run clockwise for 3 seconds, I'm going to use another command which is basically says start motor running clockwise. And off it goes. So that will continue until I stop the program. How do I tell the program to stop when I touch the touch sensor? Let's see what happens when I do this. It says here, wait until touch sensor is pressed. Then I'm going to stop the motor. And that works just fine. So the program is, the first block says, set speed to 30. Second block says, start motor clockwise. The third block says, wait until the touch sensor is pressed. And the fourth block says, stop motor. Great, that seems to work great. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try and program it so that when I press the button, it stops moving, and when I release the button, it starts moving again. So for this, we need to use the elements inside the control section. So the first thing that I'll put on is the forever loop. That means do everything that you see in here all the time. To show you how this works, I am going to use a stop motor block, and I am going to use run clockwise for 1 rotation. Stop the program running and look carefully at the motor as I run this. You can see it is stopping and starting continuously. To make this more easy to see, I am going to put in a timer. So I'm going to stop the motor for 1 second. I'm going to stop the motor, wait 1 second, and rotate. Okay, rotates, wait for 1 second, rotates, wait for 1 second, and so on. Now I need to set up something where it's going to check continuously what is happening with this button. So for that, I can use what is called an if-then. So for the if-then, I check to see what is the status of my touch sensor. Is the touch sensor pressed? If the touch sensor is pressed, I am going to stop the motor. Otherwise, I am going to start the motor. Let's get everything out of the way. So when you look at the program, you see the first step is to set the speed to 30. Then I'm going to start the motor clockwise. I'm going to repeat this forever I check to see if the touch sensor is pressed. If the touch sensor is pressed, I'm going to stop the motor. If the touch sensor is not pressed, I am going to start the motor clockwise. Let's see if this works the way I want it to work. Brilliant. That is working absolutely how I want it to work. Now, here's a challenge for you. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this challenge. What I want you to do is to make it so that when the program is started, the motor is not moving. When I press the touch sensor, the motor will start to rotate. And when I let go of the touch sensor, the motor stops. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this. So here's a hint. You don't need to use the same blocks that I'm using. You can actually add in other blocks. So we've got 2 minutes to solve this issue. One minute to go. Can you do it? Okay, it is now 10:26. So let's see the solution to the problem. So I don't need to start the motor because it is going to be stopped initially. And when the touch sensor is pressed, that is when I want to start the motor. And when it is not pressed, I want the motor to be stopped. I'm going to run the program now. So motor not moving. Press the button. Motor moves. Let go. Motor stops. Were you able to do that? Great. Now, another challenge. Remember how to make a sound that we did in the beginning of this tutorial? I want it so that when the touch sensor is pressed, it's going to beep and then start the motor. Can you figure out how to do that? I'll give you 3 minutes to solve this. So here's a hint. You can look under the section on sounds. So you can see that there are two different sound blocks, play until done, and just start the sound. You can also try the beeps, and you can also use the stop all sounds block. Just have a play and see what you can do. Another thing that you might want to try is you can put in something in the display. So the display enables you to display eyeballs on the screen of the EV3. So try putting in the sound block. If you manage to put in the sound block with no trouble, then you can try put in one of the display blocks and see how that works. 2 minutes to go. Okay, let's look at how to solve this problem. I'll just get this brick out of the way first. So I go over to sound, and then I'm just going to use play sound. So whenever the touch sensor is pressed, it's just going to play the sound until done, and then start the motor. Okay, so that works pretty much the way I want it to work. And just as an added bonus, let's have a look at the display block. So I can set the display eyes Let's do it so that the eyes are shut. So the eyes will be sleeping. And let's have the eyes open when the motor is running. That should do. Stop the program and run it again. Eyes are closed right now. So that works pretty much the way I want it to work. So we've come to the end of the lesson. So I hope you learned something and you have found this session to be informative and interesting. And please do let me know what you think in the comments below. Is there something that you would like to continue? I'm just going to check the feedback on the comments. Okay, so since I don't see any comments, it's okay. Feel free to leave a comment at any point. Hope to see you again soon. In the meantime, please stay safe and